We appreciate you joining us again. As you know, the Bond and Bonus Law Offices are doing Facebook Live broadcasts every Wednesday at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And we are trying to touch upon items that will interest consumers during what's been a tough last year. My name is Brad Bodis, and I am a principal with the Bond and Bonus Law Offices. Our offices are located throughout Alabama, throughout Mississippi, and we're in the Knoxville area in Tennessee. And what we do is we help people with money problems. And certainly there are a lot of folks having money problems after this past year. We know a lot of people that have contacted us that have lost jobs, some that have closed businesses. It's been a tough year. We do encourage you, if you are having financial problems or you anticipate them, be proactive. Our offices are all offering absolutely free initial consultations, and we're doing them kind of like we're coming to you today. We're doing them virtually for your safety. We'll do them by phone, we'll do them by video, but absolutely free. Reach out for help and make sure you know what your options are. I am absolutely thrilled today for this week's Facebook Live broadcast to have a very dear and I won't say old, let's say long time friend, Stan Brown. Stan and I were actually fraternity brothers more than a couple of decades back at the University of North Alabama, members of the Theta Alpha chapter of Pi Kappa Alpha. Stan, thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to talk about a subject that I know is also very near and dear to you, and that is teaching young people about how to manage their money and how to budget. So welcome.
Thank you, Brad. It's great to see you. And who knew from 40 years ago that we would both be here together talking about something like this. And our days back in college were a lot of fun, but also extremely educational. And now it's our time to pass it on to others. So I'm excited about helping anybody, whether you're an adult or a child or a parent or a grandparent. Just give you some tidbits. So,
well, Stan, for our viewers, I know when you left college, you went into the banking field and you spent many years in banking. And sometime back, you decided to follow in the footsteps of a man that I thought the world of, your dad, who was a teacher, and you decided to go into education. But why don't you tell our viewers a little bit more detail about your background and your experience and what you bring to this discussion today that we'll have about teaching children about finances.
Well, thank you, Brad. When you and I were in school, I was actually started my banking career as a teller, a part-time teller. I went to school in the mornings and went to the bank in the afternoons. And that led to a career in banking where I trained to be a consumer lender, a commercial lender, a branch manager, a county president, a regional president, and in banks from all around Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida. So I've been in the skyscraper of Tampa, Florida, and the back office of Marion, Alabama. So I've seen a wide variety of wonderful and amazing people and businesses throughout my banking career. But after a little bit of staleness in it, I always enjoyed teaching. In fact, when I was a banker, I taught at the Alabama Banking School. And I decided to retire myself from banking and go back, and went back to our school, UNA, in 2005, and started working as a substitute teacher at my old high school, which is now Florence High School, and worked on a master's in business education so I could become a high school business teacher. And my goal there was to impart real world, real life experiences as to prepare our students for that next level. Many of them graduating, going into the workforce, going into the military, going into mission work, going on to college. And so it was very rewarding. And I was able to work a little bit with Jefferson County school system, and then I joined the Shelby County school system in 2010 and taught at Calera High School and Chelsea High School, and then went into our central office as a career technical education resource specialist. And then for the last, now going on 7 years, I am in charge of payroll for the Shelby County school system. And we have over 21,000 students and around 3,000 employees. So I've got a wonderful staff of two that assist me with making sure that my math is correct for our employees' paychecks.
Now, Stan, while teaching, and by the way, you're the type of teacher that I loved. It was great to have a teacher that had actually been out in the world and experienced the things they were teaching about. And I'm sure you were great, but you worked on a curriculum that is at the heart of what we're going to talk about today, about helping kids learn about how to manage money. Can you say a little bit about that for us?
Sure. Our superintendent, Randy Fuller at the time, was very proactive and very visionary, and he recognized that we were having students that had never had any exposure to any sort of financial literacy. There wasn't even course material for it. And so he asked me to help institute a program that we could get kind of geared toward juniors. The reason juniors, they were already driving age. Many of them had vehicles that they could drive. They were experiencing what insurance was like and buying gas for their car. And then a lot of them had part-time jobs. So they were seeing what paychecks looked like. And so we, along with a couple other folks in our system, we gathered around and started writing some financial literacy. And it just boomed into the middle school teachers wanted to get on board. Then the elementary teachers wanted to get on board. And then finally, the state of Alabama wanted some of my material as they created the course called Career Prep, which is now a course taught to freshmen in high school throughout the state that gets them thinking about careers, and then the other half of the semester gets them thinking about money and some basic financial literacy. So it morphed from a sort of a homegrown grassroots effort to now something that is part of a high school curriculum, and all of our high school students go through Career Prep. So I'm very excited about that. But there's still always more to learn, and there's always more to expose them to as time goes by and as technology improves and as the financial markets and the financial industry and the work industry are out there. So we've got lots of things that we can continue to help our youth, and we've also got a lot of things that where our youth can also help their parents even. So we're excited about that.
Now, that's awesome. And it goes back to what I said about having teachers with real life experience, teaching kids about issues that they're actually going to encounter and have to deal with going forward is so important. So Stan, as you know, our offices, we help people with money problems. Now, I will say, vast majority of people that come to us are people that have gotten into some type of financial problem. It's often through no fault of their own. They've lost a job. They've gone through marital problems. They've perhaps tried to start a business and the business was unsuccessful. But frankly, there are a lot of people that come in and just, when we sit down and do a budget with them, it's the first time in their life they've ever done a budget where they've put down all of their expenses on a monthly basis and tried to do the calculations to determine how they're going to meet their fixed expenses and how much money is left over to spend. For parents and grandparents out there, people that are in my age or perhaps a little bit older, finances were a whole lot simpler when we were in college, Stan. Credit cards were maybe somebody, in our age group had a credit card, but they weren't easy to come by. ATM machines were just coming around. You just really had to learn how to balance your checkbook, but it's different today. Um, I want to make sure that young people understand the basics. Even if some of us have made mistakes as adults with our finances, our kids don't have to go through that same thing. We need to make sure they get a good, sound education, a good, sound financial education, how to take care of their money. So I want to dive into some of these issues. Stan, first of all, at what age do you recommend that parents first start teaching or that parents start working with their children and teaching them how to manage their finances?
Second grade. Literally, when kids can start learning to count, they're doing basic arithmetic. Mom and dads are doing it at home with them. If it's counting the number of trees in their yard or whatever, as they start showing them uh, money, and we still have cash and coin, even though it's going away.
Right.
Understanding the counting aspect of it and the actual value of that paper money or that coin helps establish and start an appreciation for what money does. And then, I didn't realize it till 100 years now, but my father, uh, the biology professor in our family, was the grocery shopper in our family. And he took me with him. And he, just by watching him check prices, talk about um, the difference in why this brand of potato chips was higher priced than others. And without going into a lot of really detail, it just made me start appreciating uh, what how money worked. I didn't see it yet on the income side. I was seeing it on the spending side, and that's really where the kids see it first because it's hard for them to understand sort of how you get it. But the two biggest things that I tried to impress upon as we moved into high school age was number one, two key words with your money: respect it, respect how you earned it and how you received it, and show discipline on what you do with it. And those are not easy traits to have. Sometimes our personalities are counter to that type of traits. But if I could sort of convince them that having a respect for the money and then the discipline on how to work it, then we started a really good foundation to go forward.
It's interesting. You jumped right on and you said second grade. I thought you might give a more general response, but you also said when kids are learning how to count, which is at about that age. And your dad taught you about money without letting you know you were being taught by example. Of course, your parents, like mine, were Depression children. My mom grew up in a family of 8 kids during the Depression, and she certainly watched every penny that came into the home and that went out. And so you mentioned the curriculum that you helped develop. Um, Somebody, when I first started talking about this discussion, somebody chimed in and said for young people today, maybe having an app on their phone to teach them how to manage money would be a good way to catch their attention. What do you think about that? And are you aware of any good programs?
Well, obviously, even us old folks now have become glued to our telephones, and I mean, we're carrying around a computer with us all the time, and so anytime there's an opportunity to have technology tools at our fingertips, literally, can be advantageous. The the only thing I would think is again, it should have a purpose. And again, most of what young people, when they think about money, they think about what they can get for it. It's a spending mindset, and it's not It's not a savings mindset. It's not a growth mindset. It's not a long-term, how do I continue to have stability on the income that I receive mindset. And so we have to so if we have an app, a tool that helps track spending, that can set up a budget, whether it's just a simple spreadsheet that you have X number of dollars and here's what you need to spend. And most importantly is understanding your expenses from needs and wants. The needs are, yes, expenses. We've got to have shelter. We've got to have clothing. We've got to have food and water. It's the wants is where we get into issues sometimes, because they are credits and has become so much easier to get that it's enabled, as you well know in your business, it's enabled people to not so much take advantage of it, but to be taken advantage of in some situations. And so if we can understand with technology some of the things on basic budgeting, where you've got to take care of your needs, and then what you may have left over is what you have to use for your wants, then we're laying another good foundation for kids.
You know, I thought about the question after I asked it. An app on the phone, technology, there may be great tools, but it really comes down to just teaching kids what a budget is, to get them to understand that they need to look at the money coming in, the necessary expenses every month, and then what's left over afterwards. And that if they start spending more than they're making, there's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Now, I remember my wife, Kay, when our kids were younger, saying, well, I need to teach them how to balance a checkbook. And my flippant response, was, oh, they're not going to use checkbooks going forward. But that's not the point, is it? The point is they need to learn what's coming in and what's going out.
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, you're right. We're not writing checks as much, but I saw it as a banker. You mentioned earlier when we talked about ATMs were just coming. There was a reason the ATM spit out a paper receipt for you, and that was for you to go stub your checkbook. That was for you to go write that down and subtract it out of your balance. And I saw full-grown adults with all kinds of educational degrees fail to do that, and it could get you in trouble. So the ease of receiving that money from that ATM machine, and now the ease of just swiping the card, even swiping the card I never would have thought I'd seen a swipe mechanism on a Coke machine or a snack machine. And now most merchants, drive-in restaurants and things like that, don't even, they tell you, do you want a receipt? And most people say no. So how do you remember to go in and as we like to say, the old accounting term, reconcile your account or balance your account? Now, with internet banking, you can do that on a daily basis. Yeah. And so you don't have to go get out the bank statement and check everything off, and you can see what clears your account, and actually balancing is much easier than it was when you and I were growing up, because we had to wait on that monthly statement to come from the bank. And but we also have a tendency, again, that's where the discipline comes in. We've got to keep track of where our dollars are going. And so the budgeting process is the very first thing to talk about in actually, Brad, the very first thing to talk about in financial literacy is the paycheck. We have young teachers that we hire right out of college that may have never had a job before, and the check I present them is their first paycheck they've ever seen, and they are shocked at what is deducted from that check before they even get any money.
Right.
And so we teach an understanding of federal and state tax withholding. withholdings and Social Security and Medicare tax withholdings. And then we morph into some of those other basic needs like health insurance. And then we morph into retirement planning, even for a 24-year-old. It's not too late to start retire. It's never too early to start planning for retirement. So, and then all those things are taken out, and then they're left with that paycheck that doesn't say what the salary schedule said they would get paid. And that's what they have left home. That's their disposable income to now pay their rent, their mortgage, their cell phone bill, their utility bill, their car maintenance, and all those kind of things. So we really start with the paycheck. And because when somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to make $15 an hour," that's not what you're bringing home.
Right.
And then I taught all my students in all my business classes. It didn't matter if I was teaching a computer class or an entrepreneurship class or a business communication class. Every April, I taught them how to do a tax return. And because I wanted them to reinforce the understanding of those things, that what we have to do for the betterment of our society, there are taxes involved so that we can enjoy the life and the things that we sometimes take for granted that we have. And there's a cost for that. So that's where I start. Paycheck, then move right into budgeting.
All right. So for parents listening out there, two important things you've mentioned: look at the paycheck, explain what gross and net pay is, what that money coming out is going for, and teaching kids, and I think this is very important, teaching them how their tax return works. What other important steps are there in teaching young people about money? Stan, after we look at the paycheck, what's the next important step?
Well, that's where we start the budget plan. Here's what you have coming in. Now here's what you have going out. And that's where we set what we call, in accounting, we call it fixed expenses, or the needs that we've got to take care of. Some parents want their working child, even though they're living at home and don't have to pay rent, they want them to help make the car payment, or they want to help pay for the gas that goes in the car, or the extra insurance premium they're having to cover. Many times so those would be a fixed expense that you've got to have. And then we start breaking those expenses down. And then what's the leftover? It used to be, you and I were young, a cell phone was a luxury item.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a need.
Well, when you and I were young, we didn't have cell phones.
In our society now, yeah, you're exactly right. We didn't. I remember I had that in time in my banking. I had that walkie-talkie looking kind of mobile phone, and I thought I was tough stuff with that. But now we even have a communication device, so to speak, is almost a real need. And so those kind of expenses are factored in. And we did a program, we still do it in our school system, and we do it, in fact, throughout Shelby County through Leadership Shelby County and through the Shelby County Chamber of Commerce, called Get It Real. And we actually go to schools and we give them a scenario. You are 28 years old, you have a 2-year-old child, and your spouse does not work, and here's your income, and you need to get this. And they go around the different tables and they spend money on how much their mortgage is or how much their rent is. They pick out a car and how much their car loan payment is. And they go to the grocery, and it's funny, but it's also scary for some of the kids to realize, oh my gosh, I don't have anything left over. Or some of the other kind of funny stories about, young man, why did you get the sports car? That's the most expensive one. You've got 2 young children and you're a single parent. And his answer to me was, I got it because I'm trying to attract a mom for these my 2 kids. So, out of the mouth of babes, you never know what you get. But it was such an eye-opening experience that many of them said, I'm going to go home and apologize to my mom and dad because I didn't realize what they have to go through every month. And So it's a fascinating program. And that, along with some of the other curriculum, is just reinforces everything they're learning.
Boy, Santa, boy, it certainly is true. As you become a parent, the longer you're a parent, the more you appreciate your own parents, because you realize everything you put them through.
Yeah.
All right, so for our viewers, you need to look at the paycheck with your kids. You need to let them understand what's coming in, what they're grossing, what they're netting, and then you need to look at, as Stan said, those fixed expenses, the things you have to pay every month. Your car payment, your cell bill, your apartment rent, or your mortgage payment, whatever those expenses would be. And then only at that point do you have spending money. You don't have spending money until you get to that point. You know, you mentioned the young man with the car payment and the sports car, Stan. The most frustrating thing to me is when I ask people what their car costs, they don't know. When I ask them what the interest rate is, they don't know. All they really were concerned about when they bought their car is, what's my monthly payment going to be? I mean, did you ever imagine you'd see car loans that were 84 months, sometimes 90 months now? Cars just don't last that long. There are many more important issues than just what your monthly payment's going to be. If you're going to make a significant purchase like a car, dig into what the actual cost is, what the interest rate, which is the cost of the money you're borrowing is, and how long that vehicle is going to last. So Stan, we've covered kind of the basics here. If you have a child, maybe in their teens, a young adult, and you see that that child is starting to have some issues with money, that they're not budgeting properly, what's the best way to intercede at that point? High school age.
You know, our children are our children. We want to be friendly, but they're not our friend. And so we may have to impose a little bit of tough love. But what we have to do, though, is we have to be perfectly honest with them, and we have to be able to respect what they are feeling about it. And we have to give them the opportunity to express what their thought process. They're developing their reasoning skills as teenagers that they're going to use as adults, and we can help guide those. But they also have their own personalities. They're not going to be just like, me, or they're not going to be just like my grandfather or anything like that. They're going to be them. And I think it's just an open and honest discussion. I think it's fine as parents that you even share your experiences. Show them your paycheck. Show them your coupon payment books for your car loan or your mortgage loan. And not to scare them, but to just give them that sense of reality, and then do things together. If you tell them, hey, you can't spend that extra $50 that you think you have to go to, well, pre-COVID, to go to a concert, just like, okay, but if Dad, you spent that extra $50 to go to the golf course, then you're not really setting the example. And so if you have to go to sacrificing some of those wants, then do it together. And you'll find, I think you'll be able to find that a greater appreciation from your teenager to understand. At the same time, you can appreciate what they're going through as well. And that's where it all comes down to respecting the money and then setting a disciplined plan for it. And after we talked about withholdings, and the next thing we want to do, and this is what most financial advisors and I can, Dave Ramsey is one of the first ones, is pay yourself first. After you get all those deductions from your paycheck, then put some aside for you for the future. And you'll be amazed how quickly it grows. Now, Brad, when you and I were kids, we had compounding interest that was good. It doesn't do that nowadays. But if you still put it aside, then you can reduce your car loan because you'll have a down payment. You can reduce your mortgage because you have a down payment. You can maybe do a little splurge and take a trip, or you can give a little bit extra to some charity that you're fond of. Those kind of things can go a long way in helping you gain respect for your money. And so parents, set an example and lead by example, but include your child and include especially your young person starting that job, and show them how everything works and do it together.
Yeah, I'd add, you talked about practicing tough love, and just to carry that through, I can tell you as a bankruptcy attorney how hard it is when somebody's unable to make their mortgage payment and maybe facing a foreclosure, or unable to make a car payment and maybe maybe facing a repossession of their vehicle. Much worse than not being able to go to a concert as a young person. But you can start teaching your kids, as Stan said, if they haven't saved enough money to pay for that concert ticket or go out on Friday night, don't rescue them. Don't say, well, you made mistakes, but I'm going to pitch in some money here. They need to understand that there are consequences when they fail to plan and fail to put money aside. As Stan just said, pay yourself. Put that money back so that you have money for a rainy day, because rainy days will come. Anyone that's been through 2020 knows that there are going to be unexpected events going forward. And the other thing I would say, Stan, and you alluded to this, when you say talk to your kids about money issues, and I think this is true especially for males, but it's a pride thing. People are afraid to talk about the fact that they may not be able to pay their bills. They don't want to let folks know that they're having money problems. There are all kinds of options available. Hopefully you will run into somebody like Stan as a young person. You'll have good parents that will teach you about money, educators that will help you. Everyone has problems. There are a number of resources available. There are good credit counseling agencies. There are adult education courses where you can learn about managing money properly. Reach out for help. Stan, I see so many people our age that just are dealing with so much anxiety and stress, and underneath that is the inability to meet their monthly financial obligations. They feel like they're a failure. I would encourage parents, just teach your kids to talk about these issues when they're young and address them and get guidance. Stan, are there any good resources or organizations outside, of course, if you're not in Shelby County, the curriculum that you helped develop there that you can refer parents to help them teach their children about money?
There's a plethora of all kinds of things out there. Probably one of the most popular that many people have heard about is the Dave Ramsey series, which has he bases his financial literacy on a lot of Christian biblical type principles. I will say I've taken his course. I will say he's got some wonderful, just cut to the bone. Here's what you need to do. But I will also disagree on a few of his things too. So it's not a cookie cutter that it will fit everybody's situation. And as Brad, as you know, as an attorney with your clients, and when I was a banker with my customers, everybody's situation is unique to them and a little bit different to them, and they may be the best people ever, but bad things happen to good people.
Yep.
And but I was the bad guy many times as the banker, because I was just telling them, you promised to pay this note back and I'm expecting you to do it. But Mr. Brown, I can't. And then we would have to go look for options that they have. And the service that you provide, Brad, is a wonderful option for people who, if that's the best option for them to do that. So I've been on both sides of it. And it's hard. But now with technology, those kind of resources are are anybody can get to them now. And even if it's just go to the public library, if we can get in and utilize the internet and the computer there. But the most popular program that we used to enhance our curriculum was through a company called practicalmoneyskills.com. And it's right there in the title, practicalmoneyskills.com. And not only for using for teachers, educators to develop lesson plans and exercises for the students, but it has a whole segment for parents to not only help themselves as a parent, but help their children as well. And it goes all the way down through elementary age. And it's so user friendly, and it's just got full of great exercises to do that you as a parent can do at home with your kid. And we had probably one of the most popular items and they sponsored it or sponsored by Visa, was called Financial Football. And it was an interactive football game with all the enhanced videos and things. And it would ask financial literacy questions. And if you answered them correctly, you would run a play and you would move. And it created quite the competition. And it culminated in, oh gosh, I guess now 8 years ago, we had Heisman Trophy winner Mark Ingram from the University of Alabama, playing for the New Orleans Saints, came to Calera High School and played financial football with our seniors.
Oh, neat.
And it was so much fun. He was such a salt of the earth kind of gentleman. He was nice and friendly and respectful of our young people. And we just adored him coming. And he literally just had a good time. And the funny thing was, he got right in there, was competitive too. And if he missed a question, he was, he wasn't going to let that happen. So it's real, the problems and the challenges are out there, and it's real, just like you and your clients face every day. But parents, if there's anything I can tell you, go to practicalmoneyskills.com and just take a look at some of the fun stuff you can do. You will learn something, and you'll enjoy yourself doing it. In fact, the kids may come home and say, "Mom, get off the computer. I need to do some homework." So great resource. And I still go back to it every once in a while and play some financial football. So it's fun.
Well, thank you, Stan. That's a great recommendation. Thank you also for your kind words about what we do. I will tell our viewers that bankruptcy, which is the area that we specialize in, should never, ever, ever be your first choice. You should explore other options before you ever make a decision to seek bankruptcy protection. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't reach out for advice early on. And that's why at the Bond and Bodas law offices that are located throughout Alabama, throughout Mississippi, and in the Knoxville area in Tennessee, we are offering absolutely free initial consultations. And these aren't with a paralegal or some staff person. Our consultations are with a licensed, experienced attorney. No obligations, and we'll do it from the comfort of your safety or home right now. We'll do it by phone or video, but reach out for help. Make sure you know what your options are. We'll help talk through your individual situation. As Stan said, everybody's situation is different. Now, there aren't cookie cutter solutions, and that's why you need an experienced attorney to help you. So the Bond and Bodas law offices, to recap, have been doing these Facebook Live events weekly for about the last year now. We started up when people started spending more time at home about a year ago now with COVID. Last week's episode for our viewers was one of our most popular yet. We had a local veterinarian on, and we talked about COVID and pets. And addressed some of the concerns that people have as to whether pets can spread COVID, some of the issues with the fact that we will be, hopefully in the future, be spending less time at home with our pets, and our pets may actually have some separation anxiety. But that episode all of our other Facebook Live episodes and this important episode today with Stan Brown live on our Facebook page, and they're on our firm's website also. So if you know somebody, you know a parent, if you know a young person that may be having some issues with money right now, refer them back to our Facebook page. What Stan is sharing today will be available going forward, and he's offered some great advice, and we're about to offer to address some questions coming in from viewers, and I'm sure he'll offer some additional advice here that will be very valuable to people. Stan speaks from a wealth of experience. He was in banking for 25 years, finally left that dark practice and went to a noble,
That's right.
just teasing, love all my banker friends out there. But went to the noble profession of teaching, followed the footsteps of his father, who I knew when I was in school with Stan, who was that great educator. Stan, if you would, I do want to address some of the questions that we have coming in here for our viewers. So, this person is saying that, what can I do if I have older children? I guess these are kids that are already out of the house, making bad financial choices that are in debt right now. What do you advise?
An honest discussion. Try to get them to open up to you. Remember, though, what is your definition of bad choices and what is their definition of bad choices? Again, there may be something they're doing that they don't think is a bad choice, or it hasn't affected them negatively yet. So try to talk about, now that they're adults, ask them how their adult life is going. My oldest daughter is 33, and she was so excited about her new home a few years ago, and now after a few years she's had to replace air conditioning system, water heater, oven, and she just said adulting is hard. And so treat them as an adult, because that's what they are, but yet have an open discussion with them. And not so much what can I do to help, is more like, what kind of advice can I give you, or what can I show you, or where can I point you to help? Because you don't want to cross that line. I think, Brad, as you said earlier, about enabling them a little bit, always being there to, quote, rescue them. Because if you give them a little bit, it's a bonus. It's not reoccurring income. Okay, it's just a one-time kind of thing. And so, and again, that's where the sense of pride, it may be, and they may become defensive. You would be too, probably. So put yourselves in their shoes. And see if you can understand where some of those things are, and then use some of those practices that a Dave Ramsey or others have talked about, how you can just whittle away at certain things and pick something to whittle away and celebrate the goals, the baby steps that you take. And it's almost like a weight loss plan. You celebrate as you go, and then you can lose some of that debt and free up some of that anxiety that may be going on. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy at all, but they're still your child. And even though they're an adult, and you can be there to guide it as long as you are their parent.
I would add two things to that, Stan, and one is really just elaborating. You said, don't be judgmental. Help teach them. I've been doing helping people with bankruptcy issues now, Stan, for over 30 years, and every day we counsel with people that are just full of so much anxiety, and they're so bad that there are health issues. I've been doing this long enough to know that there are potential suicide issues. Don't be judgmental. Just try to help, try to listen, try to guide. And for young married people, if you have children and they're married, out beginning their lives, being a grown-up is hard. I think your daughter said this. It's encourage husbands and wife to talk with one another about their financial issues. Money issues will create bad problems for a marriage if they're not addressed jointly. So encourage your young people to talk with their spouses about the financial issues that they're having. And there was a second issue, but I forgot what it was. So I'm going to go. I'll remember it, though. So I'm going to go to this.
Well, you are older than me, Brad. So, yeah, it's okay.
You mentioned Dave Ramsey a couple of times,
Yeah.
who I agree. I don't agree with everything he says, but he does have some great resources. Does he have any resources or programs designed specifically for kids, Dan?
Oh, yes. In fact, he's got programs that he starts right out at preschool and kindergarten, even. And even if it's just get a jar, a clear jar, and use that as you're saving money. And that way the child can see the money in the jar because it's clear. And they can see how it just grows every time they put a quarter in or a nickel or a dime or whatever. It just grows. And then he's got things as you get a little bit older. He talks about the economic term of opportunity cost. Well, that just means what you have to spend may prevent you from getting something else, or you have to make choices. I want a new pair of tennis shoes, but do I need them? I need a new calculator to do my schoolwork, those kind of things. And he starts talking about that in the preteen years and things. And then he goes into, high school and even college and then even after college. So Ramsey's got some, again, wonderful resources and some really, I call just good old basic stuff. Some of his stuff can be harsh because it's almost like I can't enjoy life, but he's got some really good basic premise to work with.
Yeah, I will. I'll just, in fact, we now have a link for our viewers on the screen, and we'll share it also on our Facebook page. It's hard to write down a link quickly while you're watching a video to publication by Dave Ramsey, 15 Ways to Teach Your Kids About Money. Folks, for those of you that your faith is important, Dave Ramsey's programs are all faith-based. They're biblically based. As Stan says, they can be tough. And that may be one area where I can differ with Dave. I think, Dave's advice sometimes is get a second or third job and just do everything you can to pay those bills. But sometimes, folks, your dad, your mom, you need to be able to do the best job of being a good dad, being a good husband, being a good spouse, being able to do your job right. And sometimes you just need to reach out for help and get the advice of a good attorney, banker, accountant, somebody that can help you manage your money properly. There are options available. I always, because pride's so important, Stan, I just want to, I'm going to take a little bit of a detour here, but there's a type of bankruptcy, folks, that's Chapter 13, which is a personal reorganization bankruptcy, where you can get protection from your creditors, yet put together a plan to pay back some or all of what you owe to your creditors over time, so you can work your way out of debt with a little bit of dignity. Stan, in our part of the country, and as you know, I was not born here, but I've lived in Alabama a long time. But our part of the country, pride is very important. You want to pay back your creditors if you can, and a good bankruptcy attorney will talk to you about those options also. So again, please reach out for help if you need it in that regard. We've mentioned Dave Ramsey and plugged my friend Dave several times during this episode, Stan, but are there any other good resources? Maybe somebody wants something that isn't faith-based, that just practical. Anywhere you can point parents that are listening in today.
Well, one of the things too is I would check with your employer. Many employers have employee assistance type programs, and although that sometimes has a stigma, there may be some health related issues or behavioral related issues. But in many of those programs, there's some financial guidance, advice from a financial advisor or counselor. Brad, you mentioned an accountant. Accountants can provide wonderful advice for financial well-being. Obviously, get to know your banker. And it's harder now because we do everything online, but we still have, there are still people out there wearing that banking hat, and former colleagues of mine that still like to help people. And whether they work for a major organizational bank or your local community bank or your local credit union, but get to know your banker so that your banker gets to know you. And so if emergencies come up or if challenges come up, I was a banker in Walker County, and at the time when coal was still very active, being strip mined, but when there was potential for a downturn in the economy or a potential issue where potentially the miners may be going on strike, when my customers alerted me to that, we were able to work things out. We were able to ease that anxiety that they were going to be on strike for 2 months and they weren't going to lose their car. They weren't going to lose their house. So just as simple as just instead of always thinking, well, I'm just a number to my bank or I'm just a number to, no, you're not. You're a person. And so get to know somebody there. And that was one of the reasons that I enjoyed my career in banking so much, is knowing my customers. And you can still do it even though we want to do everything on the phone and on the computer. But it's like I had a fellow one time told me, he says, there's still some value in going into a library and holding a book. Well, there's still some value in going and getting to know people and talking to them about advice they can give you.
Stan, I teased about bankers earlier, but you're right. I mean, I have an excellent banker that I've worked with for many years, and having a good relationship with him, being able to address concerns and benefits that can be obtained through your communications with a good banker are so important. I also encourage people, most school systems have somebody like Stan, somebody that's there to teach about financial issues. If your child's having problems, a lot of good resources. Start with your local school system. Check with the principal, check with the administration, see if there's somebody there that's set up to speak to these issues and provide guidance with these issues. But I will caution you, and it's unfortunate, but there are also a lot of people out there that will take advantage of you, especially when you're having financial problems. It's important to ask around, look at people's backgrounds, do an internet search if you need to, and make sure the resource that you're utilizing is one that can be trusted. I think you're usually going to be safe with a large bank. I think you're usually going to be safe with a local school system, but be leery of agencies that may be on the internet or at the other end of a toll-free number. Make sure you look for advice. And that's so important, I'll tell you, when looking for a bankruptcy attorney. When the economy takes a downturn and people have money problems, a lot of new people try to get into this business. Look for somebody experienced. At Bond & Modus, we've been helping people for over 30 years now. We've helped thousands of people, thousands of families through difficult financial situations. And again, we're offering absolutely free initial consultations by phone or video at this point. Stan, you provided a lot of very valuable information. We're nearing the end of the hour, and I want to be respectful of your time, but I also want to give you a chance that there's, I'm sure, things that I've missed here. What have I missed? What's important from your perspective for parents to know about helping their children with money issues?
I think understanding that money is earned, and when they go to work, they're not getting. We have some people that want a job but don't want to work because they want pay. Pay is earned, and it's the earning that's where it gives you the pride. That's where it instills the confidence that you have in yourself and helps you set your goals, is because you've earned it. You've worked to get it. And if you develop that appreciation that that money, I earned it and it's mine, and it's okay to be a little selfish about it because you got to take care of you and your family. So understanding the respect of earning the money and then going into what can I do to discipline myself and to make my earned money work for me as opposed to me working for it. And a lot of that is now been gleaned after all the gray hair, and Brad, some of it has turned loose on both of us. But we don't know that when we're 22, and we don't think about it when we're 16, and we don't even sometimes realize it till it sort of just slaps us in our face when we're 30. But if we can start out that way with a sense of earned, not given, and earning it makes you appreciate it more, and it will make you be more disciplined in how you're going to spend. And then as we start talking about doing those things in life that we go into debt for, you'll be much more prepared for that.
Stan, you were a smart guy when we were in school, but you are a very wise man now. I appreciate so much you joining us and providing words of wisdom and experience for our viewers. And I just remembered what I intended to mention earlier to parents. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is either co-signing for your child on a loan or lending your money child. I'm not saying it's always wrong. There may be instances where it helps, but that there's no easier way to turn a good relationship into a difficult relationship than by either lending somebody money or co-signing on a debt with people. Teach, don't enable. You're not teaching when you enable, and often by co-signing or lending money, that's exactly what you're doing. Stan, thanks again so much for joining us. Thanks for what you are doing today. I know that as an educator, the financial rewards aren't the same as they might be in banking, but I am sure that the intrinsic, the rewards are even greater by being able to educate young people and help young people. Thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for our friendship over the years, and I look forward to seeing you soon. On behalf of all of us at the Bond & Bodas Law Offices, on behalf of my good friend Stan Brown, God bless all of you and good luck, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you, Stan.